When you ignore facial expressions, it's like muting half a conversation and still expecting to understand what's going on in that conversation. You cannot not communicate. Whether you realize it or not, we are all communicating something all of the time. In our communities, when communication breaks down, it can lead to a range of negative social, economic, and psychological consequences. When communication is thriving in a community, it leads to empathy, trust, and understanding. And some of the ways we can identify this is through people's body language and their facial expressions. As humans, we have some human basic needs that we all need to fulfill: eating, drinking, breathing. And two of the other ones that are so important are to feel seen and to feel heard. Some of the most powerful words that you can say in your community is, "I see you, I hear you," and to really mean it. But how even more powerful would it be to see beyond the words, to hear what's not being said? And we can do that via people's facial expressions. So how good are you at reading other people's facial expressions? There are 4 pictures here of young ladies smiling. Which do you think is the genuinely happy face? So you may be thinking, Adrianne, it's all 4 of them. The truth is, it's the little girl on the bottom left. That is prototypical happiness. The others are various types of smiles, but the other 3 are not genuine smiles. What about this one? You might be thinking, all 4 of them. The actual answer for this one is none of them. None of these is a genuine smile. For me, the picture with the little boy in the yellow, you'd be thinking, surely that is joy. But when you look at his facial expression, it's actually fear, uncertainty. It's a completely different emotion to what you might be thinking. And what about this for sadness? Which of these do you think is the prototypical sad child? Again, you might be thinking, perhaps it could be all 4 of them. The answer is top right. That's prototypical sadness. This one, I think, is a generated by AI photograph. Can you feel a little bit of the, uncanny valley they call it? It's not quite real. And the other 2 are nothing to do with sadness whatsoever. Now, I picked those 2 emotions because I think most people think, well, I can identify happy and sad very easily. You know, if you ask me to draw an emoji, I'll do a smile and I'll draw a frown. But there are nuances from facial expressions, from the muscles of the face, that gives us a lot of information when we know what to look for. What about these 2 people? What's your perception? How do you think they might be feeling? What do you think of their personality? Now, from all my research, and I've spoken to hundreds of people, about 80% of you will be thinking something negative about these people. He looks a bit grumpy. She looks like she might be a bit tricky. She doesn't look happy. The truth is, these are neutral facial expressions. They're not showing any emotion. Now, that doesn't mean they don't feel emotion. They're just not showing any emotion. So we don't know how they feel. The best we can say is it's their poker face. The reason I say that, though, is, and show you these pictures, is we all have a view of the world, a frame of reference that we enter our communities with. And if you saw something negative in these people, you could be going into your community with that frame of reference, and it might not be the truth. And that affects all of our communications. So I thought it'd be really useful today to just show you some of the universal facial expressions. So I'm going to share those with you shortly. But your face has 43 muscles. Those 43 muscles can make over 16,500 different facial expressions. Of the 16,500, 3,000 are directly linked to emotions. But in the English language, we've got about 100 words in day-to-day use to describe how we feel about something. So you can see that our faces often say a whole lot more than perhaps we verbalise. Scientists say that emotions take over 24 times faster than rational thought. Now, we all like to think we're very logical, we're very sensible people, we make good decisions all of the time. But actually, our emotions control most of what we do. So imagine tonight you're going to the cinema to see a scary film. You know the film is scary. You've bought your ticket, you've bought your Coke, you've bought your popcorn. You know it's scary. But what happens during those scary parts of the film? You have that emotional reaction. Now, you don't go running out of the cinema screaming because you know ultimately you are safe, your rational brain takes over. But you still have those emotional reactions. We can't turn them off on the whole as humans. Whether you're born in Birmingham, born in Bolivia, or even born blind, there are some emotions that are universal. So we have happiness, fear, disgust, surprise, sadness, contempt, anger, and again, our friend, the neutral facial expression. So wherever you travel in the world, you may not speak another language. You have a universal language of the face that tells you emotionally how people might be feeling. So I thought it'd be useful today to share some nuances. So what do you see here? Hopefully you've picked up this is the fear face. Now when I say the word fear, it could be anxiety, worry, concern, any of those different words. And how we identify that, the muscle movements that we see from this facial expression are these. So the eyebrows raised and pulled together, which creates lines across the forehead. Someone who lives with a lot of anxiety or are anxious in the moment, they get the lines across the forehead. The raised upper eyelids, tense lower lids, and lips that stretch back horizontally towards the ears. It's not a smile. It can look like this. Sometimes you see someone doing this, biting their lip, but the lips really want to stretch. Now, what triggers this emotion in people? It's a feeling of not being in control. The emotional definition is a fear of psychological pain or physical pain. But underneath that all is out of control. I don't feel in control. I'm uneasy. I'm uncertain. So this lady was being interviewed about dog food a few years ago now. Listen to the question, watch her answer.
And tell me what your perception of that wet dog food is.
Now, she went on to give a very good, very logical answer, very sensible answer. The truth is, she felt out of control. She didn't know was the answer. The picture she was shown didn't give her enough information for her to say how she really felt, that she didn't know what was going on with that picture. But then she rationalised her answer. And that's what we often do as humans. We'll give a sensible answer, even though the truth is, I feel uncertain. So how best to respond when we see this expression in our communities? Well, the number one rule is to never highlight it to somebody. Never say to someone, oh, well, I can see you feel fearful. It doesn't create for a great communication. The better way to approach it is, do you feel a bit uneasy about something? Is there anything I can help you with? Or maybe they need some reassurance. You're doing a great job. Well done. When we recognise the muscle movements of the face, we can respond empathetically and honestly and authentically, and we create great relationships. What about this emotion? This is prototypical disgust, or another word you could use is dislike. It's a rejection of some sort. The muscle movement is that nose wrinkling, so that movement. If any of you have been around teenagers and you say to them, go and tidy your bedroom or go and do your homework, they go, I don't want to do that. And that's how our faces react when with something we don't like, something we don't want to do. That's the trigger. This lady highlights it for us very well.
Yeah. Did you vote that one anyway if it wasn't?
I probably would have done, actually, yeah.
Why did you say?
Now, when she would ask you, would you have bought that one anyway? Yeah, probably would have done. She probably wouldn't have done. That is the true answer. But she was giving a sensible answer, a rationalised answer. But the truth emotionally was, no, she probably wouldn't. So the best way to respond to that, I would say, is there something else you would prefer? I was pitching to one of my clients a few years ago, and I was going through a range of different topics that I could offer for their workshop. And as I was offering the topics, I just watched my potential client's face. And on certain topics, there was a slight nose wrinkling. So did I highlight that to her and said, well, I can see you don't like that one? No, because I would have broken that relationship. She would have felt uncomfortable, and I definitely wouldn't have won the pitch. What I said was, is there a topic that you would prefer rather than that one? What's important to you? What does your team need? And by doing that and adapting to what I've seen on her face, not highlighting it, I give her what she wants. At the end of that meeting, she turned to me, she said, that's brilliant. That's exactly the training I wanted for my team. How did you do that? Did you read my face? Yes, I did read your face. She said, but I didn't feel uncomfortable. I didn't know you were doing it. And that's how it should be when we're interacting in our communities. People should not feel uncomfortable or feel like they're being analysed. So our next emotion. Hopefully you've picked up this is genuine happiness. A real smile always includes the crow's feet and the wrinkling under the eyes. Now they're the bits that we would like smoothed out and erased if possible. But they are the ideal elements of a genuine smile. Without those elements, it becomes a very different smile. Did you know there are over 16 different types of smiles? The two we're going to focus on today, though, are genuine smiles and posed or social or polite smiles. So this is a young lady I used to work with, and we were working with a university, collaborating with them in the consumer psychology department. And in the lab, they found out that genuine smiles versus the polite or the posed smile got way more engagement. People responded so much better to a genuine smile, even though that is still a nice smile. So we very scientifically tested it out in store. We spoke to 200 shoppers. 200 shoppers were being interviewed about mouth care. At the end of the interview, we said to them, help yourself to a free sample. And some of them said, oh, which one should I take? Help yourself, you take one. The boxes were swapped over halfway through the day for left and right variability to account for that. But they could help themselves. Of 200 shoppers, not one person, when asked, said why they went for that one rather than that one. Because as humans, we instinctively react to warmth and genuine emotions. And it can be any emotion, as long as it's genuine. We were just happening to be testing genuine and posed or polite smiles. These genuine smiles create great engagement. It's triggered when someone is really enjoying what's happening and they're in agreement. And that's an important point. A polite or a social smile doesn't mean they're being agreeable or they're on the same page as you. It means they're being polite. They're giving a social cue because that's expected of them. Now, the way I highlight this and the example I give is my daughter-in-law. She's a mobile hairdresser. Her business works well with repeat business and referrals. So when she gets to the end of someone's hair and she says, do you like your hair, as the hairdresser always does, and do we always tell the truth? No, we don't. When she gets to the end of doing someone's hair and she says, do you like your hair? And they say, yeah, it was okay. That's a polite smile. They're just being polite. They don't really like it. There's something that isn't quite matching their expectation. Now, in that moment, she can say to them, would you have liked it a bit longer? Would you have liked it a bit shorter, a bit darker, a bit lighter? Next time, how do you see it going next time? Because in that moment, she can find out what the mismatch is to where she wants them to be to where they actually are. If she walks away without fully understanding, they will not repeat and they will not refer. And that's the lifeblood of her business. And I'm guessing it'll be the same in your life, in your businesses, your communities. Look for those genuine smiles, because people are agreeing then. The polite smiles, they are just being polite. So I have a challenge for you. Over the next 24 hours, I would love you to pick 1 or 2 people that you feel comfortable with and respond to what you see happening on their face. Forget your normal frame of reference and pause and watch what happens and respond to what you see. You've got 3 emotions there that you now know the muscle movements of, that you can watch out for. And there are 3 key points I'd like you to take away. Number 1, observe before assuming. We're all so quick, we're all in a rush these days, and we assume we know how other people feel, and we often don't. So observe what's going on for them. Number 2, empathy. Meet people emotionally where they are. And we can only do that if we can recognize their emotions. And number 3, be intentional with your own facial expressions, your own body language. We want to create these great relationships. So where you can and where it's appropriate, use those genuine smiles. And if you can't, for whatever reason that might be, the traffic might have been awful, whatever, say to someone, I'm really sorry. Bear with me for 5 minutes while I just get myself going again. I've had a bit of a tough morning. People will appreciate that emotion. So, facial expressions will improve your communications and it will help you build stronger, kinder, more connected communities. When you ignore facial expressions, it's like muting half a conversation and still expecting to understand what's going on.